and welcome to another episode of your favourite movie podcast, Movie Bollocks. So, it's good to be back. There are many of these. If this is your first episode, go back, find a few more. They're dotted around all over the place within the main podcast feed. And there are extras available of this episode if you sign up at Patreon. That is at patreon.com/Howard H. Smith. For just $5 a month, you can ask questions of your musical heroes. That's right. Basically, you get a chance to ask questions of people that get interviewed. You get your own podcast. You get this early. You get loads of Acid Rain behind the scenes stuff. It's a cornucopia of delightful stuff. So if you're into the podcasts, I also do a radio show which is for patrons only, which is called Radio Bollocks. That's right, Radio Bollocks, Movie Bollocks, Talking Bollocks. I've got 3 bollocks, ha ha ha. And of course, why not? I'll throw this in as well. My name is Howard H. Smith. I am the lead singer in Acid Rain. I am also a stand-up comedian. I also do this here podcast along with Talking Bollocks. I am also host of the official Motorhead podcast, The Motorcast. That's coming out soon, so keep your eyes out for that. That's enough about me. How about we start talking movies? Well, first up, what have I been doing since I spoke to you last? Here are a few things that I've watched and some little reviews. First up, The Fugitive. Remember that? That was a TV show in the 50s and 60s, I think. Then it was remade as a movie. We've all seen Tommy Lee Jones chasing Harrison Ford all over the shop. Well, they've remade the TV series. The people who brought you 24 have brought The Fugitive back with lead character played by none other than, Kiefer Sutherland. Not much of a surprise there, and because it's from the makers of 24. And the episodes are, wait for it, about 11 minutes long. That's right. About 11 minutes long. They're trying to do something different, I guess, see what works, what doesn't. For these times where people have shorter and shorter attention spans. What was I saying? Then maybe that's worth a go. And maybe it is, because I downloaded all episodes and I got as far as starting the 3rd episode and just going, this is rubbish. Yeah, and it's got nothing to do with the length of the episodes, just really cheesy. I mean, well made, but the script was horrendous, and the whole thing just felt forced and, just not very nice. Do you know what I mean? If it was food, it would have looked good, and I'd have got about 3 or 4 mouthfuls into it and then decided I didn't want to eat anymore. It was one of them. Okay? So, next up, Uncle Peckerhead. Right, a comedy horror. And unfortunately, comedy horror is a very, very difficult genre to pull off. You either pull off funny, but not horror, or you pull off horror and not comedy. To pull off both together is very, very rare. Uncle Peckerhead, at times, almost does it. It's 90 minutes. It's pretty inoffensive stuff. If you feel like something of that genre that's not shit, then there you go. Hey, put that on the poster. Uncle Peckerhead. Howard H. Smith of the Movie Bollocks podcast said, it's not shit. After that, new Netflix movie, Project Power, which I really enjoyed. Jamie Foxx is in that. And it was, so is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And for me, Netflix are on a pretty cool run at the moment. I really enjoyed that, so definitely worth checking out. Big budget, action, set slightly in the future, and some really, really cool effects. And I mean, I know, really in 2020 all effects should be cool, but they're not, are they? Because we've seen some films with shit effects. So I just thought I'd mention that they're really good, and really strong performances from Jamie Foxx and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, given what they have to play with. Now, next movie, it couldn't be more different from Project Power. It's called Leave No Trace. Now, it's taken me a while to get round to this movie, and I apologise for that. It is absolutely, I mean, I really, really enjoyed it, but I've got to really flag up I've got to be honest, basically. The first time that I tried to watch this movie, I gave up after about half an hour. So, if any of you are thinking, yeah, I tried that and I gave it up, or if any of you are going to watch it and think, just hang in there. Just hang in there. Yeah, I mean, I was just really, really impressed. It's about a father and daughter who live in the woods. They live in a public park. And, this isn't a spoiler because it happens very early on. Authorities arrive and basically say, right, okay, we're going to have to take you away from here. You can't just live in a public park. That's not actually legal. And they go into the system. Now, that might not sound fascinating. It is brilliant. There is no one is acting in this movie. That's how it feels. It just feels like it's a bunch of incidental characters who crop up, and everybody in it just feels so real. And the story is a heartwarming story and an upsetting story at the same time. Really worth a watch. Couldn't be more opposite to the previous Project Power action movie. But I just found it totally absorbing, and really, I was going to say great fun. It's not great fun. It's but you really do feel like you're just watching these people experience. You feel like you're sort of, it's a window into somebody's life. It is just so well acted. Like I said, it's just so downplayed. It's fantastic. Really, really enjoyed that. And I also have to mention brilliant performances from Thomasin McKenzie, who is just superb. I haven't seen her in anything before. She was amazing. And Ben Foster. Now, Ben Foster is one of those actors where you're probably thinking, oh, I've never heard of him. And yet if you saw a picture, you'd go, oh, right, yeah, I know him. A bit like Phil Jackson, who was on a few episodes ago. So, yeah, it's fantastic. I've said enough about Leave No Trace. Next up, couldn't be more opposite, Death Note. Death spelled D-E-T-H. Death Note. Now, this movie got, if you, again, this is why, if you look things up, if you look reviews up and stuff before you watch a movie, you're all, you are basically putting up with everybody else's opinion. So it might have a low average number, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be your kind of thing and you really enjoy it. So basically, that's what this is. It's really, really cool, really enjoyable. I enjoyed it. It's from the comic book, and that will be why it's got pretty much a low average score everywhere, because basically comic book geeks have got on there and slated it. It's not the film. It's not the film that I imagined in my brain since I was 13 because I've been reading the graphic novels. Oh, how could they have that character played by that person? Oh no, it just doesn't. The usual, fucking absolute geek bollocks. If you're coming to it as a movie and don't know anything about graphic novels, comics, or anything else, it's perfectly acceptable. Perfectly good job. And Willem Dafoe is perfectly creepy as the creepy voiced Death Note himself. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I'd go so far as to say I enjoyed it. Not that I didn't mind it. I enjoyed it. And so yeah, give it a shout. Now, next up, well, I'd heard this was good, and yeah, it is The Peanut Butter Falcon. Well, it stars, and it's kind of almost like a sort of it's a bit like Sheila Burf trying to kind of save his career, basically. But he is excellent in this, as is Zach Gottsagen. Zach Gottsagen. They're a brilliant duo. And basically, Sheila Burf is a fuck up. Zach Gottsagen is a guy who is basically oh God, how would I describe it? I'm trying to think of the look, I'm like that. It's Down syndrome. He suffers from Down syndrome. Okay, so, and it's this I'd call it a road movie, but it's not. It's more like a sort of river movie. That's not. Yeah. Anyway, look, watch it. Peanut Butter Falcon. Watch it. If it doesn't warm the very cockles of your heart, then I'm sorry. The bad news is you're dead. Okay, it is just absolutely. I'm going to use this word, and I hate it when other people use it. It's absolutely delightful. That's a proper movie review. Not that I'm claiming to be a movie reviewer, but that is a proper movie reviewer's bit of wording there. Oh, it's delightful. It really is. It's delightful and heartwarming is what I'm saying. I think you should check it out. And if you don't enjoy it, you're dead inside. And now, in fact, I'm going to carry on with the new releases and then tell you about something I rewatched. Next up would be, well, it's got to be. You wouldn't you be amazed if I didn't say something about the new Bill and Ted? Bill and Ted Face the Music. I watched it, really enjoyed it. Okay, good few laughs in it. Stupid. They've managed to recreate the same vibe that the first two had. It's kind of weird. It reminded me a bit of Fury Road, Mad Max Fury Road. Now, that's not a comparison. I'm sure you're thinking, what the fuck? Could be interesting seeing you get out of this, Howard. What I mean is, as in, I started watching Mad Max Fury Road, and it's about 25 years since I watched a Mad Max film, and yet, within a few minutes, I felt like I was back in that world, and it was like triggering all sorts of things from 25 years ago, and I was like, good God, I'm being reminded of stuff here that happened years ago, and it's just really weird, really, really weird. Well, Bill and Ted is exactly the same. Within 5 or 10 minutes, it was just like, yeah, I'm totally back in that world and loving it. Really enjoyed it. Don't want to give anything away. Suffice to say, there is plenty of time travel. There is plenty of Bill and Ted bumping into other Bill and Teds, and not robot us's this time. But yeah, it's cool, man. It's cool. Definitely worth checking out. And I also watched a movie called Get Duked. Now that seems to be what it's called, but the weird thing is, I watched it, and it was called Boys in the Woods. Now that is, I think, a better title. But anyway, Eddie Izzard does play a role in this. Again, it's comedy horror. I would definitely say it's better than the aforementioned comedy horror that was Uncle Peckerhead. Get Duped is definitely worth watching over that. It's 80 minutes, okay? 82 minutes, which, horror, comedy horror, well done. And in fact, I wouldn't call it comedy horror, comedy thriller. It's not even that. It's just more comedy than anything else. But plenty of kind of violence. There were 2 moments in it that made me absolutely howl out loud. And for 2 of those in the same movie, I'll go with that. Now, I would well imagine that some people watch it and will not find it as entertaining as I did. Well, comedy is probably the most subjective of genres there is. So, good luck with that, but don't blame me if you don't like it, but I did. Okay, so, finally, the movie that I rewatched, Annihilation, on Netflix. The all-female crew go behind the shimmer wall that appeared years before. It's an Alex Garland written movie, Alex Garland directed. And I watched it for the second time, and on the second watching, I got to take in a lot of stuff that I didn't the first time, and it is apart from one really annoying character who just basically ignores stuff that she sees all the time, despite having everybody else watching the same thing and going, oh my God, look at that, oh that's that, and this one person going, no it isn't, which I just found incredibly irritating. And then the thing is, the irritation is increased because none of the other characters go, listen, idiot, this is what is happening. Get your head, they don't actually confront her. They just let her carry on not believing in what is right in front of her, which is irritating if you're me. So anyway, but all in all, I mean, it's a really great movie. The concept is superb. There is some really, really creepy shit in it. And also, with a movie like this and a climax like this, there is every chance that it can end up falling apart. And you've seen really good movies fall apart with that, the final culmination, and you're just thinking, oh, bloody hell, it's not really done it, has it? It's not really got to the heights of the rest of the movie. Really well done. Really worth your time, in my opinion. Just really, really cool. Really, really enjoyed it. And I am going to have to make a comment here, and it doesn't make me a sexist, but I am going to have to make a comment and say, yes, one of the more enjoyable all-female cast movies I've recently seen. With the Me Too movement and everything else, there's a definite move for within the industry, which again, it's great that these movies are coming out, but also there's a glut of all-girl movies coming out, and it's clear that basically, the movie industry is going, hey, let's cash in on Me Too. Now, by the same token, do you know what I mean? If women in the movie business and women viewers have got more to what, that's all great, that's wonderful. It's just there is a lot of shit out there. But having said that, let's say that just reflects there's a lot of shit with all male casts and stuff like that. So I guess it's just basically making up for all those lost years when Harvey Weinstein was making sure that only certain types of movies were getting made. But yeah, Annihilation is really, really worth your time. Really worth your time. And what else is worth your time is definitely having a listen to this next interview. Actually, before I finish on Annihilation, I do want to point out that Natalie Portman is the biggest name that you'll recognise from the all-female team. And as always, Natalie Portman is really good. Well, she's really good in Leon the Professional when she's about 12. And let's face it, she's pretty horrendous in the Star Wars remakes. But having said that, the script she's given to work with is pretty horrendous. And let's face it, who wants to act opposite Jar Jar Binks? Even if there's no fucker there, there's still got to be somebody saying the lines nearby, haven't they? I mean, imagine that. You are Natalie Portman acting to basically a tennis ball on a stick that is the height of Jar Jar Binks, which is supposed to be about 7 or 8, and some clown is off camera going, "What's the you me thinking me doing?" Like some twat. And you've got to try and keep a straight face and act against that. In fact, you know what? Natalie Portman, I take it all back. She's brilliant in those films because she doesn't burst out fucking laughing in every scene with Jar Jar Binks. So I take it all back. But she's really at her peak in any movie where she has to play somebody that's a bit confused and not quite sure what's going on and emotionally vulnerable, because I don't know, it's just like she does that really well, and I'm genuinely not slagging her off, but she genuinely does it really, really well. And I'm trying to think of the other film that she's in. That's it, there it is. I'm just going to drag this out. V for Vendetta, which is a movie I love, and if you've never seen it, please do me a favour and you've got to see V for Vendetta. It's from the creators of the Matrix trilogy. That's right. It's from it is from, well, I was going to say brothers, but I do believe it's now brother and sister, or it might actually be sisters. The Wachowski, well, it was the Wachowski brothers, and now I think it's the Wachowski sisters. So I'm not sure. It was Andy and Larry. I'm not sure what they go by at present. And that's not me being sarcastic. I really don't, and I don't really have the time or the inclination to look it up right now. But hey, send it in on a postcard to No One Gives a Shit. And that's not, no, I don't give a shit. Right, I'm not getting into the whole gender thing. Anyway, all I'm saying is Natalie Portman is very good in V for Vendetta as well, where again she's a bit like that character, a bit confused all the time, and a bit just sort of, I don't know, vacant. I couldn't be slagging her off more, could I? She's really good at acting vacant. Anyway, look, like I said, we now have a genuine writer on the show. Writer, author, rock biographer. Well, he's going to tell you all about it during the course of our conversation. Why wouldn't he? So this was DX Ferris and myself having a chat. We cover all sorts of topics. It's all in here, as you're about to hear. So instead of just teasing it up, why don't I just get on with it? Here is DX Ferris and myself having a chat not very long ago. Well, hello there.
Hello. Hey, Howard, I need to pee so bad I can taste it, but I didn't want to be late. Can you give me another 60 seconds, and I'll come back rested and refreshed?
Absolutely, dude.
Okay, be right with you.
No worries. Well, welcome to the Movie Bollocks podcast. This is an interview with Slayer writer DX Ferris. Awesome. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Is are we rolling tape? Are we live?
We the old expression. We are rolling tape. I mean, essentially the microchips are doing their thing, and I am recording, but I also recorded the that earlier intro and the music, so don't worry, I'm not going to use it.
No, please do. In fact, because of your audience, I have prepared today. Being from America, I have prepared a list of my British credibility.
Oh, really?
Number one, of course, is the Perishers entrance music. I know what that is, Perishers.
Well done.
Number two, even though my blood is principally Irish, my great-grandmother, Annie Liddell, or Little, was from Sheffield.
Oh, that's not just English credentials, mate. That's Yorkshire credentials. They're even better.
Yeah, there you go. That's a whole other topic. Pittsburgh is a lot like Yorkshire, if I understand correctly. That's where I'm from. My nana, Nora Ferris, she was born in Hexham.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, Hexham. I went to a wedding there a couple of years ago.
And I know Acid Rain have played Sheffield as well. So
yeah. Oh no, we've played Sheffield many times over the years. Well, it sounds like you've got royal blood.
And then quickly, I did live in the country in 1979 and 90. I lived in Ware, a little bit south of London.
I remember. Yeah.
At the time, I owned a Kevin Keegan Spurs soccer kit, or football as you call it. And also, quickly, Monty Python, The Young Ones, New Order, Acid Rain, and I've been really into the Police lately.
So basically, you're a bit of an Anglophile.
Yeah, well, it's in the blood, isn't it?
And also you were over here at a very impressionable age as well. I think clearly some of that stuff has really stuck with you. I remember we spoke before. What was it? There was a particular TV series that it took you.
The Boy from Space.
That's the one.
Nobody has ever taken me up on my begging offer to please let me know how that series ended. So if you're out there and if you watched The Boy from Space in school on early videotapes in 1979, 1980, please let me know how it ends. Look me up. I'm easy to find.
It's one of the many services that we provide here on the Bollocast. But of course,
thank you for having me back. It's a pleasure.
Oh no, it's an
rare
absolute...
in this life that you find people that give a shit. So when you do, I appreciate it. Thank you, my friend.
Oh, not at all, mate. Thank you. I mean, it's great having you on, and to be honest, thank you for thanks for flagging up to me that and reminding me about your Goodfellas book, because of course your credentials for being a Movie Bollocks guest are, you've got a book out on one of the greatest, some would say the greatest gangster movie ever. Although it still didn't win the best movie Oscar, which of course went to Dances with Wolves, which I'm sure nobody regrets now.
Well, I mean that's how it goes, isn't it? What does Pacino have his Best Actor award for?
Yeah.
It's not The Godfather.
Yeah, and the thing is as well is that it's kind of like, which is aged better? Is it Kevin Costner's Dances with Wolves, or is it Scorsese's Goodfellas, containing everyone?
Yeah, so the book is called Good Advice from Goodfellas. Positive life lessons, actionable takeaways, crucial discussions, and business best practices in the greatest mob movie ever made. So it is, the introduction to it is about the movie itself, how it was made, but mostly it is an unprecedented, long, deep meditation on the movie and what we can learn from it. I find something like 250 life lessons in every single moment that the movie depicts.
I mean, I'm A, absolutely fascinated by this, and B, I love that you've got a section called business practices, because from what I remember about business practices, it would be, oh, you had a bad week? Fuck you, pay me. Oh, your bar burned down? Fuck you, pay me.
Life's like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Try and explain to your boss that you're sick or you're not really feeling up to it today. They don't care. They might have fancier language to express it, but it's all the same hustle. As The Godfather points out a little bit more explicitly, it's all the same hustle. Politicians, business people, gangsters, we're all doing the same thing. We're all getting ours. Just some of us are using more fancy language. And bigger and better sums of money and ways of getting them. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, me, if you're just catching up to us, I'm DX Ferris. I'm best known as that, probably. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a creator. I'm a writer. I'm a communicator. I'm a publisher. I've written something like 9 books, depending on how you want to count them. I'm an award-winning journalist. I'm probably best known for my rock biographies. I wrote an official, very big book with a group called Donnie Iris and the Cruisers, who are a relatively obscure rock band from the 80s, but they are iconic in my hometown, Pittsburgh, which is a famous steel town. England has a lot of cities like that. So the other strain of my books are motivational and how-to books. The biggest and best-selling one of those, as we talked about, is Good Advice from Goodfellas. It's the first of a franchise of similar books that I write, I edit, and I publish via my company 6623 Press. At 6623 Press, we make reasonably priced, unconventional books about pop culture, success, and other cool stuff. My role models and my heroes are people like George Romero, Ian MacKaye, Henry Rollins, Howard H. Smith. Guys that do their thing their way and aren't necessarily interested in getting all the money and all the chips. We just want to do our things. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to just go all the way and go as far as I can with what I'm doing my way. That is what Slayer did. I wrote a couple books about them. That's what Henry Hill did in Goodfellas. He had some goals. He achieved them. And success wasn't the most healthy thing for him. So we talk about that in the book too.
Yeah, I mean that's a sort of almost be careful what you wish for moment. But there's a lot of moments like that in the movie. I mean, very much when he pistol whips the guy who tries it on with his girl, and then sticks the gun in her hand. And I remember the movie freezes, and she sort of says, I knew right there and then what was going on, and that this was a bad thing. But she couldn't stop herself getting involved in it.
But I kind of liked it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the line. I kind of liked it.
But that's what's important in life. You got to know what you like. You know, you can't live your life for everybody else's values as we're taught to. Just sometimes things call out to you. Certain things are calling your name out there in the darkness, and that is, you know, that's what's at the heart of so many movies. It's what's at the heart of the hero's journey, that Joseph Campbell myth that you see cited in so many screenwriting lessons. You know, your hero starts off as nobody from nowhere, but something out there is calling his or her name, saying, you know, come find me, come get me, come do it.
Yeah.
And maybe you make it, maybe you don't. Maybe your goals aren't exactly what they were cracked up to be. Maybe in achieving your goals, you create more problems, not necessarily your salvation, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, well, look, movies are... the very, very, if it's a successful and a good movie, it's almost certainly has not veered away from the 3-act structure, because that's quite rare where you get something that works outside of that structure. And that's kind of like life, really. You know, you have your childhood, you have, you know, childhood, you become an adult. All that is kind of like adulthood takes you up to middle age. And then you're into the 3rd act. I don't want to speak for both of us, but I am definitely in the 3rd act now.
As am I. We're about the same age, so you know, I find myself constantly in a situation where I'm saying, "Ugh, this shit was easier when I was 26."
Yes, yeah. You mean like running up mountains, or do you just mean stepping off? Or do you mean stepping off a curb?
Getting out of bed in the morning, all kinds of shit.
Yeah. I hear you, brother. I mean, I've stayed, you know, very, very fit. I mean, I run 2 or 3 times a week, and I've always been a pretty fit guy. Played football most of my life, or as you guys would incorrectly call it, soccer. It's the world game, but I too am feeling it a bit. But do you know what? All of a sudden, I've realised that people are listening to this and going, movie podcast. This is 2 old guys complaining about their aches and pains. So as much as I would love to carry on this line of questioning, let's get straight into movies. What was the first movie that made an impression on you, where you thought, like, wow, these things are a bit, you know, these things are a bit good?
Wow, I've always liked them. I think that's another part of my genetic makeup. You know, my dad was an Anglophile before me. You know, I grew up, you know, I've heard you talk about this with some of your other guests. I grew up in a media age of scarcity, when you might see a movie one time and that could be it. You know, something like The Godfather was legendary. So when I was growing up, if something like Marathon Man would come on the TV at 10 o'clock at night or 12, my dad would stay up and watch that movie. Yeah. And he would let me stay up with him, like, watch this. And Marathon Man, that was very cool. Something pivotal in my development as a movie fan was this. I forget the name of the British War Museum, one of the war museums. My dad would trick me into watching movies like The Great Escape. He talked me into watching this. And I'd say, Dad, I've seen that before. I've seen The Great Escape. And you know the movie, don't you?
Yep, absolutely.
So at the end of it, Steve McQueen faces what in these days would be a triumphant scene. He's going to jump his motorcycle over some barbed wire fence.
Yep.
But in those pre-Hollywooded days, he just wrecks into the barbed wire, and he's caught by the Nazis, and he's sent back to his cell, and he's back where he started. But my dad would trick me into watching the movie by saying, well, listen, maybe he'll make the jump this time. And being 8, I said, oh, really? Wow, that's interesting. So in the back of my head, you know, when I'm watching Rounders, I think, well, maybe Mike doesn't make it this time. Maybe something's going to happen this time. When I'm watching Kill Bill, I think maybe she doesn't make that pivotal move this point.
But there's a beautiful kind of there's a beautiful lesson there. And I think that's a really lovely touch of your father as well, which is basically very early on in life, you discovered the joys of watching a movie more than once, which is something I constantly go on about. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we can get into my favorite directors later, but I'm a lifelong, not exactly insomniac, but you might as well say insomniac. I'm a hardcore, genetically wired night person. My body wants to be awake at night. And I've continually recommitted to the idea that I'm going to fit into the 9-to-5 world, no matter how ill-fitting it is. So I spend a lot of nights where I have to be up at 6 o'clock, but it's 2 o'clock, and I'm watching Kill Bill for the 279th time this year. There have been entire years when I pretty much every other night watched either a Kill Bill or Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, just because they were on TV again.
Now I'm fascinated
on, movie channels, but I use those.
Right, look, I'm fascinated there for several reasons. Firstly, Ocean's 11, loved it, the remake. 12 and 13, not so much, but I'm fascinated by the Kill Bill things, because both I remember watching Kill Bill 1 and thinking that the highlight of it was the animation, and hoping that Kill Bill 2 would make it all worthwhile, and at the end of watching both of them thinking there are two movies I am never ever going to watch again, and haven't.
Well, it's in the rewatches. Tarantino is a director that I would argue maybe impossible to appreciate his movies the first time around. You almost have to see them 10, 12 times. Now, some of his movies, I certainly understand where you're coming from. Hateful Eight, saw that on the big screen, don't care if I ever see it again. But Kill Bill was not instantly one of my favorite movies. Kill Bill is something that, if not for my insomnia, if not for countless incidences of nothing else being on TV, I don't think I would have watched that and rewatched it. But on the rewatches, I've discovered things in that. I've become accustomed to their rhythm. I know what's going on. The stakes don't feel maybe as high or low. Same thing with Ocean's 12 and 13. Ocean's 12 is not popular with the people that love 11, but it is the most rewatchable one of them. But it takes a while to get to that point and recognize that.
Yeah, I mean, I to just jump back to your Tarantino chat. I've got to say, I'm as good as some of his movies are. There's very, very rarely would one of his movies not be improved by removing 20 to 25 minutes. When you look at Reservoir Dogs and how he made his name and how it's a 90-minute movie without an inch of fat on it, and Pulp Fiction goes in the same way but with a slightly little bit more fat, and then you get to Jackie Brown and you're struggling to see the meat for the fat, and there's just, for me, there is just so many self-indulgent tendencies, including casting himself. In Hateful Eight, he doesn't cast himself, but he can't resist doing a voiceover, which is unnecessarily and ruins the film. By the way, I know somebody who's done a 2-hour edit of Hateful Eight, and it's a great movie. So remind me.
Really? So it's better in the shorter form, not the longer.
Without a doubt. It's just cut all the fat, and it just zips along, and you're absolutely just... you're absolutely spellbound by it, as opposed to sitting there thinking, there's a lot of snow around.
Well, that's something that I do in the kind of work that I do. I call it the documentarian dilemma. I've never made a music documentary, but I've made a very short music book, and I've written a 220,000 word book that's a coffee table book, very big book. With 75 chapters that gets into all of the possible details you could possibly want about a band that not a lot of people care about. So when I say the documentarian dilemma, I mean, what do you do when you're documenting something or even making a film? Do you make it shorter for the people that are not as interested, or do you go super, super long for the people that love it? I mean, if you love Tarantino and you love Hateful Eight, maybe you want 4 hours of that shit. Sure, if you're making a documentarian or a music documentary, do you go 90 minutes on the whole story of ZZ Top? Or do you make the 4-hour Tom Petty documentary? I want the 4-hour Tom Petty documentary.
Yeah, I can see that.
I want every little detail about everything. I want every digression. I want to know about the side projects. I want to know about context. But, that's the dichotomy of life. Sometimes you do certain things and sometimes you don't. Jackie Brown, I don't want a longer version of that.
No. But again, I think we've ended up focusing on Tarantino, but even something like Django Unchained, I just there is some brilliant scenes in that, and overall I enjoy the film. Apart from Christoph Waltz giving that Christoph Waltz performance yet again, but it's just, there's a good 25 minutes you can hack out of that movie. I mean, and it wouldn't even be difficult. Do you know what I mean? I watch it and I don't think, you'd have to sit down and it's like, no, there's bits in it where they're just screaming out, chop this. But,
Yeah, I mean, Mark Twain famously said in a letter, sorry it's so long. If I had more time, it would be shorter.
Yeah, very good.
And as a writer, I know that it's much harder to go short than it is to go long.
I agree, but bearing in mind when we're talking movies, we should be talking show, don't tell, and for me there's just way too much baggage in that particular movie.
Right. I mean, and Judd Apatow has made a career of that. Instead of making a lean 90-minute movie, he makes the 2.5-hour movie that has those moments that you just live in. And some people like that, some people do not so much.
Well, I'm a big. I mean, obviously, given that I do stand up as well, I'm always in search of great comedy movies, and this leads me to just do a sidebar and say, everybody listening, and your good self if you haven't seen it. Give The Fundamentals of Caring a watch on Netflix. It's a Netflix original, stars Paul Rudd. Even if you don't like Paul Rudd, watch it anyway.
Which I do.
Yeah, I mean, I do as well. But it's a great example of a 95-minute comedy movie. And you know why you can make a 95-minute comedy movie? Because there isn't a needless romantic subplot. Because in most Hollywood comedies, you have to have a romantic subplot, and straight away that means that there is going to be a section where they split up and you try and get them back together. That's going to take 20 to 25 minutes, and there's going to be no jokes in that section. And,
right. I mean, can you imagine Goodfellas with studio notes? I mean, it's kind of a romance, but not really.
Yes.
If you had somebody from the studio saying, let's take this Karen thing and tease it out a little bit, I don't think that's a better movie.
No, absolutely. And, Scorsese, I don't think really is interested in anybody's notes other than his own.
Exactly. Which is why he's one of my heroes. He's doing his thing his way.
Yeah, absolutely. And what did you think to his comments about superhero movies not being sort of really cinema and being more akin to amusement park rides?
Yeah, I see where he's coming from, but later on when we talk about favorite genres, my favorite two genres are time travel and superhero movies. I love those Marvel movies. I waited my whole life for those Marvel movies. There was a point that I had given in and thought that those Marvel movies were just impossible and it would never happen. So I spent very much 40 years of my life thinking, why can't I just get a good Hulk movie? Not Hulk's a bad example. Hulk TV show was good. But Iron Man, Captain America, it took all the way until Captain America, the Winter Soldier, that I thought, yes, it's possible. They've made a good superhero movie. I love them. So I understand what he meant about them being thrill rides. Most of them are not known for their cinematography. I don't know that we've had a lot of great scores as such. I don't know if the Marvel filmmakers do what Scorsese values in a film. They're not necessarily reinventing the form. I think Black Panther is the best drama in the Marvel cinematic universe, but it's not a very good-looking movie most of the time. I think a lot of the visual things fight against it. So I see what he's saying, and I like to think I recognize the nuances of it, but I love those movies. Those are important to me. That is, in many ways, I think some of the evolutionary pinnacle of movies.
Nothing's ever been attempted like that. To make so many movies and to have them intertwining, and all working towards one point. One end game, if you like. It's never been done before.
Yeah, and they're all very good, some great. I mean, none of them is universally recognized as a dud that was pointless. And that's amazing. That's an accomplishment. So, on one hand, I'm very interested in what it takes to be a successful maverick that can just kind of live off the land. And on the other hand, I like juggernauts. I like big sports franchises that have just made the correct decisions for 40 years straight. That's very hard. How do you do that? I'm interested in that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love a darkly lit, edgy, low budget independent movie. But by the same token, give me something that costs 200 million and is very loud, and angry, and I'm in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Scorsese has certainly whiffed himself. I mean, Gangs of New York. What was that about? What happened there? Yeah, that's a movie that I've tried to find in the rewatches. It's on cable a lot the last couple of years. It never quite pulls me in for more than a scene or two.
You've just rediscovered, or not rediscovered, or properly discovered Last of the Mohicans, haven't you?
Yeah. I've been a fan of Last Mohican since it was released. I've always liked it. I always loved the soundtracks. One of my favorite soundtracks and scores. But I really got religion about it this year. I'm not sure why. It just kind of found me in a new way. I mean, I reached something about it called to me, and I reached for a Blu-ray that I'd owned for a couple years and not opened up for whatever reason. And wow, you can make a point for that, or you can make an argument for that being the best movie, or if not the best, then certainly as good as movies get. It's one of those movies like Goodfellas that everything is in there in some way. It just explains like an entire way of life, a code of existence, a way to be, what being alive on the planet means. It's all there, man. Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah, I do you know what? I'll admit, I don't think I've actually seen it.
Really?
Yeah.
Get on that shit, Howard. There's your homework.
It is, isn't it? In fact, I should have got on that shit as soon as you sent me that email saying that you'd rediscovered it. So,
well, next time I'll come back.
That's
very. Talk about Hostiles, though. I mean, for as much as Wes Studi, the amazing actor, does in the movie Hostiles, he does a lot more in Last of the Mohicans. I mean, he's a literally iconic actor. But in Hostiles, though, it's a very still performance in which that guy just has the weight of the world and Western culture on his shoulders. As an American indigenous person. And what he does in Last of the Mohicans is he is one of the great movie antagonists. I won't call him a villain. He's just, a lot of his interests are directly not aligned with what the antagonists of the movie have to do. And he is, as much as anybody else in the history of cinema, he's somebody trying to stop your heroes. And he's not wrong. Nothing in his arguments or actions is unreasonable. But he's got to stop the guys that you're rooting for. And if you haven't seen that, that alone makes it a total must-see.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to give that a watch. And I only recently discovered Hostiles. I mean, literally, I probably watched it about 6-7 months ago. Actually, it's longer than that ago because 6-7 months ago it had been lockdown, which is weird. But it's got one of the most brutal opening 10 to 15 minutes you can ever see in a movie.
It does. I mean, Hostiles, if you haven't seen it, is kind of a Western. It's kind of a Western in the way that Goodfellas is kind of a gangster movie.
Yeah.
What I mean is the common thread of those is that it presents the mythology of the gangster, of the Western, of the cowboy, of the Indian, of the cops, the robbers. but it strips away all the romance from it. Now, Goodfellas certainly has romance in the first 2/3 of the movie, but Hostiles takes a lot of the romance and the flowery underpinnings of Westerns and says, there's nothing cool about this. People are getting shot. People are dying. People are waving their flag for freedom, but they're also paying the consequences for it, and people are dying unnecessarily.
Yeah, and there's also a kind of it's not a all sweetness and light happy ending as well. You know, the guy doesn't get the girl, etc. It doesn't compromise at any stage. It just kind of sort of lays it out for you and go, there you go. This was not a very nice time to be alive, basically.
Right. Yeah, it's not a romance. It's here's what you have. Life is small. You have a couple options. Pick one, and maybe that's good enough. Maybe that's all you have, regardless.
Yeah, and no, I really, really enjoyed it. Now, time travel, I am going to go because anybody who likes time travel, I would always recommend getting your head around the TV series Travelers.
I've not watched that.
Well, buddy, you have 3 seasons of awesomeness in front of you. Like I said, it's called Travelers. It's a Netflix series. I think it's still on there. It is done. It's over, which is a shame. But it's done brilliantly. And the thing is, when it finishes, you genuinely left with that feeling of, wow, they always say, always leave the crowd wanting more, and that is exactly how you feel when when it ends. But it's one of the more creative and cleverly written time travel things that I've seen, because every time you start thinking about, hang on, if that was there, and that they beat you to it every single time. Even if you start just half a thought of, hang on, that doesn't make sense, there will be an explanation for you coming along. You just have to wait. And it's
really?
It's really, really well done. Really well done.
That's what makes Bill and Ted Part 2 one of my favorite time travel movies.
Have you seen number 3? Have you seen number 3?
Fun with the mechanics of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But have you seen number 3?
Where they're trapped in the cage and they say, well, when we do get out of here, what we're going to do is go back in time and arrange it so we can escape the cage. So we do have the key. Well,
in which case, you are going to really enjoy Bill and Ted 3 then.
Really?
Oh, it's very much about time travel. It's not long before they manage to find the telephone box again.
So my list of things that I've added to my must-sees here, thanks to Howard, are Travelers and In the Line of Fire. That's on my list.
Oh, In the Line of Fire's on your list, thanks to me, is it?
Yes, thank you.
Right, okay. When did I mention that?
Oh, on one of the old ones. I was listening to some of your older episodes to make sure I was prepared for this one, and you spoke of it glowingly. Your old mate, who, I forget the guy's name.
Oh, Gary Foley.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
You spoke of it in a way that was compelling and intriguing, so that is on my list.
Well, funnily enough, I'm going to have Gary on. I'm going to have Gary on again because he's a man that created his very own video shop, and literally used to have we'd go round and you'd go into his room, which was just full of videos, and he'd just hire them out, and you could keep them for a few days and bring them back. I mean, it was just absolutely ridiculous, but it was just hilarious. But those, like, as you were saying earlier, we're kind of pre-internet people, so it does mean that sometimes when we found movies to watch, it was just finding the movie in the first place was like finding a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard of this movie called Clockwork Orange, right? No, I heard it's fucked up. He does all kinds of stuff. And then finally, once you can get a copy of it, what can I do to keep this? How can I make a copy of it? I still have this kind of starvation mindset where I'm surrounded by this giant, unnecessary library of old DVDs and videotapes and VHS tapes that I can't get rid of, because, again, I grew up in this age where, Escape from New York's on HBO at 2:30 in the morning. Well, you better stay up and watch that shit, because who knows when you're going to see it again.
Yeah.
So I've got these countless spindles full of DVDs of shit copies of movies that I might want to watch again. But now I have such an archive, and I'm never going to go back and get any of it. And by the time I get the time to go back and watch The Shield, the entire series, by the time I have enough time, I'll be able to say to my kids, listen, can you just download that into the microchip in my brain, and I can have it kind of flash through my brain without taking the time to watch it?
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I watched what was it? I watched the whole of The Shield, purely back when we used to box set, and somebody said, it's a really good cop series. So I watched it, and I really enjoyed it. Especially because it's probably the first thing of note that Walton Goggins did, and then the next series he did, which I absolutely love, is with Timothy Olyphant, and it's Justified.
Justified, yes.
Yes. Not enough people know about that show.
I watched all of The Shield, watching Walton Goggins, thinking, this guy is so good. He's so good. It's a shame, because he's creating this unforgettable character, and he will always forever be known as Shane. That's just all it is. He did his job too well, so I thought that he would just be forever linked with that performance, and I'm so glad to have been so wrong about that.
I mean, Justified for me is just it's an absolute gem that so many people are unaware of, and the fact that the fact they made 5 seasons out of an Elmore Leonard short story is amazing, but the fact that they managed to nail Elmore Leonard's kind of humour and keep it going all the way through, despite the fact that he passed away after season 1, it's just incredible.
Yeah. Something that I've maintained for years was, again, I made my name as a music writer, somebody that wrote about music. I don't know if I ever considered myself a critic very much, but I was a music journalist. And when I started losing interest in music, it was probably around 2008. And I thought about getting into TV. At that time, there were only 3 or 4 really remarkable critics. And I thought, I could do that. I don't know if I'd be as good as them, but it would be fun to write about music and have an excuse to process all this stuff. But at that late stage in my career, I thought, listening to music has become a chore. It's become a job. I'm not really that into it. It's been a while since I really cared about much, and I didn't want that to happen to TV. But it has, for over 10 years now, it has been my thesis that television is the new movies. I'm sorry, television is the new music. Television is the new music.
Yeah.
Music has become easy to make. One person can sit down and create a very impossibly complicated album. Maybe it'll be good, maybe it's not. But TV is where that kind of collaboration really lives. It's where you can find a producer-band relationship. It's where you can really unpack a lot of ideas. It's where all the money goes. You can take 5 years to develop something like Justified. I'm not interested in music much anymore. I'm interested in TV. In some ways, that's where filmmaking has gone.
Yeah, and it's funny. I kind of get that. I do understand. I think the thing is, we've got so much high quality TV, and we've got and almost like music and TV are equally accessible to anybody, and unfortunately, it's quite easy to get. It's quite easy to I don't know, become very blasé with both. And I especially
absolutely. Again, as a superhero fan, I don't know if you get them all in England, but for a while I was a very big fan of the DC superhero shows like Supergirl, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Green Arrow, or Arrow as it's properly called. And those just somehow they became boring to me. The fact that they have to create 25, 22, 26, whatever episodes
Yeah, I enjoyed Green Arrow, but it just became too much. Just too many episodes, really, basically.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, it's impossible for me to say, yeah, there was a Batgirl show and I stopped watching it, or a Batwoman show. But there was a Batwoman show and it was on every week, and watching it became a chore. I was not interested because every week I felt like, well, this is the same episode, isn't it? You know, I never felt like that reading comic books, you know, even though it's essentially the same story. I never thought, oh, well, this is Batman. I've seen it before. But something about those shows just over and over and over again, you know, and maybe it's the difference between having, you know, true creative auteur vision and having a board of directors to report to. But, you know, they just want same. And at a certain point, The Flash became boring to me. I made it through. I watched every episode of Arrow, but I skipped a lot of them. I mean, certain plots I would just fast forward through. Sometimes I would watch the first 10 minutes of an episode and the last 10 minutes, and everything in between was filler. And that should be impossible. How is there a Flash show that I'm not totally gripped by every week? Well, it can't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I've honestly, as you were speaking then, I was just nodding along and this is exactly how I felt as well. And it's just the fact that it's just too many episodes. You can't be doing 22 episodes of a guy who gets dressed up at night and goes and fights crime.
Yeah, or, you know, it takes a lot of time and innovation to produce those. You know, I mean, my favorite super TV shows are The Boys on Amazon. Do you watch that?
Oh,
you get that?
I'm 3 episodes down on that. Well, I've watched the new 3 episodes, put it that way.
Excellent. And Umbrella Academy on Netflix, and those are, you know, 8-10 episode seasons. That's perfect. That's
and
all you need.
you know who co-wrote the Umbrella Academy?
Jared Way.
Yeah. Mad.
Yeah. Well,
Mad,
he
isn't it?
created.
It's insane.
Guys like that are fascinating to me. You know, guys like him. Like, how do you walk around being that talented? Is it tiring? Is it exhausting? What do you want to do? Have a great band, create some comic books, maybe make some movies? I don't know. Like, I struggle hard to be half decent at one thing.
I know it is incredible. Sometimes it does feel like, you know, one person got all the talent.
Yeah, I mean, some people just are more. You know, I mean, you look at people that are somewhat athletic, and then you look at a real athlete that can effortlessly do a backflip. Somebody like Jason Statham. I don't know if you're a fan of him. Somebody like Vinnie Jones, you know, like how can you do so many different things?
Okay, well, let me just stop you there, okay? Jason Statham. My Jason Statham story is.
I know you're a big fan of Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, very. Well, look, I had lunch with Jason Statham and Kelly Brook, who was his girlfriend at the time.
Really?
As I was dating somebody in the industry, and he was you know, very pleasant, really nice guy. Also, you know, he's an ex-Olympic diver, so hence that's where, you know, his physicality comes from. And as for Vinnie Jones is the only man in Hollywood with a Leeds United champions tattoo on his leg because he played for my beloved Leeds United.
Right.
So you've really you've tapped into a bit of a favourite of mine. I mean, he can't act to save his life, but physically, you know, he's up there with anybody on screen.
Yeah, I mean, those guys have presence. You know, some people just are more. Some people can do more. You know, that doesn't make them the Superman necessarily, but some people are gifted in a way that I am not, man. And that's interesting to me.
I agree, but I also think there's plenty of people listening to this would be thinking, oh, come on, dude, give me a break. I'd give anything to be able to write a book.
Well, you know, I mean, one of the through lines in my life is that, you know, I'm supremely gifted at a lot of things that do not make much money.
Oh, well, we definitely share that in common.
Yeah. I mean, in my something that nobody ever tells you in, you know, not in the schools that I went to anyway. Nobody ever says, listen, you can learn how to write, but there's no fucking money in it, kid. Like, I wish somebody would have at some point articulated that thought to me. It would have given me something to think about. On the other hand, I'm just doing what I can do the best I can. But it's amazing how little money there is in art. I just listened to Mastodon's Troy on a podcast that I love, Dean Delray's podcast, Let There Be Talk. And he was talking about being on tour, maybe last year, the year before, being on tour in Chicago and seeing a bass that he liked from the 1970s and looking at it and going, wow, that's nice, but I don't have $4,000 to spare right now.
Yeah.
And that was striking to me. This guy is in like one of the biggest rock bands, certainly one of the most significant. They're not selling Metallica levels of merchandising or tickets, but Mastodon is a successful fucking band. And for that guy to look at a bass and go, it's $4,000, I can't afford that right now. It makes you realize that that aspect of creativity and success that people don't discuss often. You can give your whole life to something, and there's just not much money in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is. Well, it's the way of the world, and I think everybody's feeling it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just how it is. I have a list of, I think, 17 secret evil plans, I call them, little projects I could do. I could sit down right now and I could work on books for the next 10 years. I have enough work I could do. I have enough things I want to work on. I have enough ideas. I just don't necessarily generate enough cash with all those to be able to do it full time. And it's like that for writers of all stripes. If you're on a major press and you get a decent promotional push, unless you're selling high six figures, your press probably doesn't care about you. If you're on a corporate press and you only sell 20,000 copies, they don't care. They're not impressed. They want to deal with the people that make a ton of money. If I sell that many copies, that's good for me. That's success. I can live off that kind of money.
Yeah, and speaking of which, have you ever been tempted to write a film script? Are you a frustrated screenwriter?
Not frustrated. I mean, I have, among my many projects that I would like to do, I don't have a film script on there. I have things I would like to do, but I'm not moving in that direction. I have a couple horror movie ideas that I want to do as a comic script, as a comic book, graphic novel script first. And I think it would be easier to get them made like that. I don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of getting a zillion people to fall in line and agree to a movie. But I think with 2 or 3 people working hard and diligently, we could create a graphic novel, and then we could sell that graphic novel as a movie, if you follow me.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have aspirations of going that way, but I'm not the kind of guy walking around with a script in my pocket saying, read this, make it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so do you have you ever kind of sat down and gone, right, I'm going to write a movie script?
Yeah, as a kid, I have a couple ideas rolling around in my head. I'd like to make a college movie. As a kid, I sat down and tried to make that happen, and it just wasn't happening at the time. I have a couple ideas for heavy metal movies that I think are pretty good.
Awesome.
Velvet Goldmine, but with thrash metal.
Well, you know what? I think any movie that is even. Bill and Ted. They're not band movies, but they're as close as you're going to get. It's so hard to make something that is believable, that has any ring of authenticity around it. And I have to say, that is why massive hats off to Bradley Cooper and his remake of A Star Is Born, because I found that to be just awesome, frankly.
Oh, here you've opened a can of worms here, mate. Yeah, I love that movie. A Star Is Born does a lot of things that I had thought were impossible to do in a music movie. A lot of things that happen in movies are these tiresome tropes that are just not realistic.
Yeah.
The idea that an audience can see a song for the first time and just be enthralled by it and taken away and say, well, this is something transcendent. This is good. I'm mesmerized by this song. That doesn't fucking happen. You know,
Yeah.
You have to know the song. You have to get into it. You have to watch it. But in A Star Is Born, the first time that she gets on stage with Bradley Cooper, you're hearing the song for the first time. You're hearing Shallow, and it's entrancing. And I got goosebumps just thinking about it. It works.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, even right from the very opening scene, when it is him playing with his band, and straight off the bat, I was like, "This is a tune." There's riffs in this. He's playing that. This is, that. I just think the credentials of the movie to be able to be authentic are almost right there in the opening scene. Because by the time that song's finished, it ain't Bradley Cooper on screen. It's the character. It's the rock star.
Right, and at no point are you watching the movie and pretending to like music, saying, yes, I understand what this song is supposed to represent, but I don't really feel it.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other we can do probably several episodes of any podcast talking about music movies. I have a short list of movies where the music is absolutely perfect for what it's supposed to be. Movies like Scott Pilgrim, where the movie and the music in it maybe isn't super great, but that's okay. It's an indie rock band. It's perfectly modulated for what it should be. And in A Star Is Born, when Ali's making her, what's the song? Why You Come Around Me in Those Jeans? Oh, why do you do that?
Yes.
And it's not a great song, but it's not supposed to be a great song. It's a satire of what pop music sadly is often. But that's perfect. It's exactly what it should be.
Yeah. And I have to say as well that, Lady Gaga in that movie is excellent. Absolutely excellent. And I don't think she'll ever do anything that good again, because funnily enough, the forerunner for that is Courtney Love in The People versus Larry Flint with Woody Harrelson.
How did that happen?
Yeah. How did Courtney Love ended up getting nominated for an Oscar? Well, how she was able to put in such a great performance is she plays the part of a heroin addict whore. So yeah, I mean, one could say that it was the part she'd been auditioning for all her life. But she is brilliant in it. I mean, all jokes aside, and that is a fantastic, fantastic movie. The People versus Larry Flint never got the recognition it deserved because of its subject matter, which for those aren't aware, Larry Flint is basically he created Hustler magazine. He was the one that said, no, the Constitution does not say I cannot sell pornography.
Interestingly, that movie is a very good primer on American press law. I mean, if you are a journalism student or if you're into writing or free speech, it's a very good crash course in what you are and are not allowed to say in the American system of America.
Well, also I think it's also a great kind of red flag for, if you're in a particular state, they may well rule something illegal that they don't actually have the power to rule that is illegal, because they're basically, overruling the American Constitution. And so you have to go higher and higher to actually get a genuine legal opinion and a genuine legal ruling, as opposed to a bigoted, we don't want that kind of thing in our state ruling.
Legitimate legal rulings used to be a fairly big thing in America.
I'll
leave it at that.
Oh God, no! Yeah, we are both teetering on the edge of a precipice here. We go tumbling into it, and the movie podcast, is left ashore as we tumble down.
Back to Goodfellas.
Yes. Good thinking. Good thinking.
Is what you can get away with.
Yeah.
What's legal is what you can get away with, and I think if you look at Goodfellas through the prism of 21st century American politics, I think a guy in a red tie could go far by pushing those boundaries. I don't know.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know. And there is, when you talk about, like, business practices in the Goodfellas as well. When you talk about, I just think, it's why leave anyone alive? If you kill everybody, there's definitely no witnesses. No matter how much you may like somebody or how many years you may have known them, it's still not worth having them around.
Yeah, I think the big lesson from Goodfellas is that they do their best when they're generous. When the rising tide is lifting all the boats, everybody's doing well, everybody's getting paid. But when they start cutting out people to keep this and keep that, and maybe they have their reasons, maybe not, maybe it was necessary, maybe not. But when everybody gets greedy and tries to be the one person that profits out of it, the whole system falls apart pretty quickly when everybody is pursuing their self-interests over what is good for the group, for the tribe.
Yeah. And also, I think you also find out that there are certain, even in that world, it doesn't matter who you are. There is certain things you don't do.
Right.
And that is whack-a-made guy without permission.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it all comes down to the money. The made guys are keeping the money in. You can't take away somebody that is a foundation of it, that is keeping all the order together.
Yeah, keeping everybody in line, because there's a figurehead, and this person runs a business, be it construction or be it garbage. You've got to keep them in line. So I'm interested to, for instance, for me, yes, greatest gangster movie ever is Goodfellas. Totally agree. Greatest mob TV show, well, there's only one worth even mentioning, and that is The Sopranos.
Well, yeah, it's my argument in the book that, The Godfather is, certainly great movies. Godfather probably the second best mob movies, but The Godfather takes gangster mythology to Sunday morning. We see church scenes in a gangster movie.
Yeah. Oh, we see Love at First Sight over in Italy and all of that.
Right, and Goodfellas is the rock and roll version of that. Goodfellas is gangsters on a Friday night and a Saturday night.
Yeah.
And what The Sopranos does is it takes the gangster lifestyle and it transports it to Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah. Monday to Friday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like what I love about Sopranos is there's loads of scenes down at the nightclub, and invariably you will have half-naked women dancing around in the background, but it's you just never notice, because it's like whenever there's a scene there, it's so pivotal. Things are going to kick off.
Yeah, at a certain point, your work just becomes your work. Like, oh God, I gotta go to the strip bar again and deal with the manager and the money. Jesus.
Yeah. Oh, bada bing, isn't it? Bada bing.
Yeah, bada bing.
And there is great kind of parallels with Goodfellas and Sopranos. Apart from obviously Sopranos is the next generation, it starts with the fact that our mob boss may be having mental issues and is seeing a psychiatrist, which again I think is just possibly one of the greatest log lines for a TV movie ever. For a TV movie, a TV series. You go in and you pitch that to some people at a production company or a HBO, and you just say it's about a mob boss and his family, literally both his families, but he's struggling with stress and depression and starts seeing a psychiatrist, and it's just like, right, I want to hear another 50 episodes of that.
Yeah, and that's something that was so ahead of the curve. Think back to 98, 99 when that started. We've made leaps and bounds as far as acceptance with the realities of mental illness, challenges, whatever you want to call it. I think everybody is crazy if you get close enough to them. You know, you just need to find people that are compatible with your kind of crazy, and hopefully you'll get along. It'll sort itself out.
Well, Sopranos, you're right. You point out the year, you know, it started, and I think if you go back, you look at basically this great golden age of TV that we live in now was really kicked off by 3 TV series, and that was Sopranos, The Wire, and 24. Because those 3 kind of, you know, with 24, it was the split screen, real time, all action. You know, they started doing things like, oh right, we found out there's a mole, and you find out in the beginning of the episode. Now, traditionally, you wouldn't find out for another 10 episodes. You know, nobody you know, in wherever was being spied on would find out who the mole was for another 10 episodes. Whereas with 24, you'd find yourself before the end of the episode, the mole has been revealed, and it's like, right, okay, so this is working on a completely different kind of level. It just threw a lot of practiced television tropes out the window, and just went, no, we're going to ramp it up a level. We are going to keep people breathless and moving all the time, and then. You know, Sopranos was just this incredible anti-hero, because Tony Soprano is a thoroughly disgusting, abominable human being, and you love him and you want him to do well. You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then you've got The Wire, which is the very
one of my
first.
Favorites.
Oh,
that's another. I mean, that's everything. That's a show that was so far ahead of its time. I mean, that's America.
Well, it's so far ahead of its time. They're using pages, for God's sake.
Gotta let it in the game.
Yeah. Oh, the thing with The Wire is, it's like in 24, you've almost got your kind of Hollywood drama. With The Wire, it's almost a documentary, and with Sopranos, it's sort of film noir. You know, it's. I mean, those 3 for me are what this generation of TV is built on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what makes The Shield some of the best TV ever for my money? You know, in some ways, it is like the best TV show ever, in the sense that I think it has the fewest missteps. The Shield does. I mean, very few of its plot lines fizzle. By the end of season 1, the tension is unbearable. They're painted into a corner, and there's no place they can go. And they only get painted further and further into that corner. It just gets tenser and tenser and tenser. And that certainly is built on a foundation of those. You know, in The Sopranos, there's no escape. 24, tenser and tenser and tenser and tensest. And The Wire, you know, The Wire does something really interesting to me. You know, my favorite character in The Wire is sober McNulty. And I think the worst character in it is drunk McNulty.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, a guy played so authentically by Dominic West, who is from, also from Sheffield. As I'm checking my IMDb here. It's really interesting to me that British actors that have made such good work out of playing American characters. Stephen Graham, who you've mentioned before on this show. Yeah. I mean, how does that guy go from the comic relief in Snatch? Have you still not seen Snatch?
I still haven't seen Snatch, I'm afraid, yeah.
I understand.
Oh, by the way,
how
hang
do you go
on.
from the comic relief in that to playing a mob boss in The Irishman? I mean, how do you do that? You know,
did I tell?
Acting is like stage magic.
I think I told my Stephen Graham anecdote about filming The Irishman on the podcast, didn't I?
I didn't hear that one.
Oh, right, okay. Well, basically, I was listening to an interview with him, and it was brilliant. And he was saying it was the scene where, spoiler alert, Pacino is in jail, and he's in jail as well.
You people.
Yeah.
Said you
yeah. Well, they're in the kitchen. It's just the two of them, and they're in the kitchen. And Pacino is finishing. He's eating his ice cream, his bowl of ice cream, and Stephen Graham went up to catering and said, like, you know, how many more have you got? Another bowl of ice cream? How many have you got in this? Like, we got 2 bowls. He goes, right, okay. So that bowl he's on, there's another bowl left, and they're like, yeah, okay, right. So Scorsese says, right, roll, and they're doing the scene, and Stephen Graham stands up and swipes the table and swipes the ice cream off the table, and it smashes on the floor, and he grabs him by the lapels, and Scorsese shouts, "Cut!" And straight away, Stephen Graham's sort of like, "Oh, there you go. Sorry about that." And Pacino doesn't even look at him. He just turns around and goes, "Hey, Marty, did you see that? The kid scared me." And it's just like, and Stephen Graham's telling this story, going like, "He's calling me the kid. I'm 45 years old."
I guess that's one of the interesting things about the movie life to me, that you can see somebody in literally a small role, and then like over the years they develop, somebody like Billy Batts in Goodfellas, just like a small role, but you take that 2 minutes in the spotlight and what do you do with it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a lesson from Goodfellas.
Yeah, and you see this everywhere. You're right. I mean, you see people who funnily enough, the last. The last one of those I noticed was watching. I watched the first Batman movie, Batman Returns, and there's a little blonde-haired boy in it who asks for Batman's help, and it's Joffrey from Game of Thrones, who went on to. I think he's actually retired from acting because he was such a hateful, despicable character in Game of Thrones, and he got so much.
Did his job a little bit too well.
Yeah, he got so much abuse that I think he's basically. If he hasn't retired, he's certainly taking time out, which is just crazy. But another film that springs to mind that if it's not on your list, please put it on your list because it's a real Anglophiles movie, and that is Dead Man's Shoes.
Dead Man's Shoes. I don't know that one. I'm writing that down.
Okay, 90 minutes, mate. 90 minutes. Not going to hold you up. That is a movie, and you will recognise people in it. And you're aware of Paddy Considine?
Yes.
Well, he gives one of, if not his greatest performance in that movie. He believe it or not, he is terrifying.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm in. Say no more.
Yeah.
Say no more.
Yeah. I know because I've mentioned an actor you like. I've mentioned that it's 90 minutes, that it's that he's terrifying in it, and it's good for an Anglophile. So it's basically ticked all of your boxes.
Well, yeah, I don't mind the long thing. Again, I'm
same here. Yeah,
the 4-hour Tom Petty documentary. Did The Irishman need to be as long as it needed to be? I don't know. That's the whether you want to call it a dichotomy or the challenge of art. Art isn't a thing that runs by rules. Andy Warhol said art is what you can get away with. Sometimes you do things and they work. Same as management. Sometimes you have to take a hard line and not let people fuck around at all. Sometimes as a manager, you can't pay them what you want to, so you have to let them fuck off a little bit and create a comfortable environment where if they're only getting so much an hour, well, at least they don't mind coming into work because they like it. Sometimes 4 hours is better. Sometimes 4 hours is worse. Context is so important for life and art and business and sports and whatever.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And also on The Irishman, I kind of know what you mean, but by the same time, it seems a bit churlish to sort of say, yeah, do you know what? It shouldn't have been 3.5 hours. It should have been 3 hours. And it's like, do you know what? If you're going to watch 3 hours, you may as well watch 3.5 hours.
Yeah, and it's Scorsese. It is not.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people love it. I get it. I'm only now warming up to it. I watched it the first week. But it's not an entertaining movie.
Very good point. Very good point. Yeah.
But that's part of what it's doing. It is continuing to strip away the romance from it. The Sopranos in its last couple of seasons decided that people had taken Tony Soprano the wrong way, so it went out of its way to point out what a disgusting, destructive, negative lifestyle it was, that I think it became kind of... the show became against its own interests. I mean, it was a show about how awful the mob was. Well, it's not fun to watch, is it?
Yeah.
And, what the Irishman does is it completely takes all that romance and sex and violence and good time from Goodfellas, and it gets rid of that and shows what a mundane, boring, grinded out, working stiff life that people that are mob affiliated have to live in and deal with.
Yeah. And also, it kind of it shows the sort of the straitjacket that being in the mob is as well.
Yeah, it's not entertaining. It's a great movie. I understand the points it's trying to make, but probably the most fun scene in that is Stephen Graham and Al Pacino going against each other.
Yeah,
There's nothing in there that makes you think, oh, that's great. That's a nice life. I'd like to live that.
Yeah, like you say, you people. That is. Well, look, we're kind of we're rocking and rolling here. I want to get to my standard end of interview questions, so we don't have to rush them. So first up would be favorite director. Now, I often say, favourite male director or favourite female director. I'm just going to say favourite director, and that way we can just do away with any kind of gender issues at all.
Well, I have them both.
Love it. Great.
The director I probably spent the most time with is Kevin Smith.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of his. I love that guy's work. I'm not saying he's the filmmaker that Scorsese is, but I love his stuff. It's important to me.
Yeah.
But Kevin Smith, he's one of those aspirational figures that you can draw lessons from. Again, this book, Good Advice from Goodfellas, is about me not just looking at a movie and saying that's good, but learning lessons from it. You can learn lessons from Martin Scorsese as a creator. And Kevin Smith is a guy that has made a life around just wanting to be in this world that he loves and going out and achieving it and showing other people how to open that door and make that happen. And as much as I watch his movies, for the last 10 years, I've spent at least 2 hours a week listening to his podcasts.
Right.
So he's one of my favorite directors. I've probably spent the most time watching Tarantino, Soderbergh, and the Coen brothers, movies that are just infinitely rewatchable. Things that when it's 2:30 in the morning and I can't sleep, and Kill Bill or Oh Brother Where Art Thou comes on, I'm like, yeah, okay, bring it on. I'll watch this. But my favorite director to me is John Hughes. That's a guy that speaks to me on a personal level. I grew up with his movies. As someone who was an entertainment journalist, I always thought my whole life was building up to the point that I'd be able to interview him and maybe do some kind of longer thing about him. And when he died, that really took the sails out of me as a journalist, as a writer. Movies like The Breakfast Club, Some Kind of Wonderful, so many of them. Maybe they haven't aged well. I know it's trendy to call him problematic, as with a lot of 1980s movies. But that's the guy that kind of speaks to my soul, my formative mind. The guy that really made me fall in love with movies. That went from, Snake Plissken is awesome. That's great. But actually seeing something that I could relate to, up on the screen. That was John Hughes. So I love all those guys, but John Hughes is my guy.
Do you know what? That is absolutely totally from left field. Wasn't expecting that whatsoever, and I'm just sat here nodding, remembering what an absolute piece of total genius The Breakfast Club is. I mean, that movie had a profound effect on me when I watched it, and for years later. And you know what? I still make obscene finger gesture from such a pristine girl.
You keep eating your hand, you're not going to be hungry for lunch.
Yeah. I'm still. Your dad works here. We could do this. We could do this all night. But you're right, and I must admit, I was extremely disappointed with comments that were accredited to Molly Ringwald. Looking back 35 years later, it's like, look, you can only do your best at the time within the confines of society at the time. And yes, if you look back at things that are 35 years old, some of them will be a bit off colour, and maybe they don't chime in with how things are now. Well, guess what? That's because it's 35 fucking years old. And to be honest, if we're going to play that game, every single one of us and the way we speak at the moment will be offensive to somebody in 50 years' time. So let's just give everybody a break, maybe.
Right. So my favorite woman director is Sofia Coppola. You know, she has made two of my favorite things. Lost in Translation, one of my favorite movies. That's another one. Anytime it's on, I can watch that. And the Bill Murray Christmas special. I'm a big Christmas guy, and that is fucking magical.
Right, okay. Well, I've got to say, I'm not a fan of Lost in Translation. But hey, it's not about me. It's about you, and that's a really interesting choice. A really interesting choice. She's not great in Godfather Part 3. Let's be honest.
Well, let's not. Well, there's a new version of Godfather 3 coming out. So maybe let's watch that, and then we'll revisit that.
Right.
Topic.
Okay. Let's just.
Coppola himself agrees that could have come out a little bit better.
Well, let's brush past that. And next up, favorite genre. Well, I think you've already answered this earlier.
Yeah, time travel and superhero movies. I mean, my whole life was just one crushing disappointment after another, going to see a big superhero movie and thinking, yeah, I'm so excited. Here comes Tim Burton's Batman. It's going to be fucking awesome. And just being shell-shocked at what a dull, lifeless piece of crap it is. And that's a hill I will die on. I hate the Burton Batman movies.
And that at the time would have been an extremely unpopular opinion, because they were all being lauded as the greatest movies ever.
Well, look at what's on the radio. You know, a lot of people can be wrong about a lot of stuff.
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. Well, so basically what you're saying is your ideal movie is a time traveling superhero.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
okay. All right, brilliant. Well, we'll hang in there for you on that one. So, favorite male actor, favorite female actor.
Favorite male actor? I think overall I might go with 1980s Kurt Russell.
Oh, you just made a lot of listeners very happy. I think there's a lot of guys nodding along to this who were 16, 17 years old, wanted to be Snake Plissken. Have watched Roadhouse, you name it. I think that's a really, really good call.
Yeah, I mean, he was just badass. He was cool. He was funny. I suppose Sylvester Stallone tried to do it, but he was able to take the piss out of himself a little bit and make fun of himself as Jack Burton and Tango and Cash, deconstruct it a little bit.
Yeah.
So he proved he could do it all.
Yeah, no, that's a great call. And again, like John Hughes, not something that I would have, not one of the big four, if you like. You've really put some genuine thought into this. I'm loving it. So who's the female?
Matt Damon had a hell of a run. Up until a certain point. I thought he had never made a poor choice with a movie script. Up until what? What was the one where he played like the small person who shrank? At a certain point, I stopped following him as religiously as I did.
I know what you mean.
Hell of a run there. At least 10 years of no bad movies, and I don't know that he's made a bad one. Just some are greater than others.
Yeah. Female actor.
Female actor. I love Jennifer Lawrence. I love Charlize Theron. She kicks ass. Kicking ass is an important quality to me. If it's writing book, I just like kick ass.
Right. So you've seen Atomic Blonde then?
Yeah.
The fight scene that starts in a room and goes down the staircase and then they get out into the street. Fuck me, that is just brutal.
Yeah, and similarly, I'm also. Like, if I had a bet on somebody, I'm a huge fan of Kerry Russell, who is best known in America, at least for a series called The Americans. Have you seen that?
I have. I love it. It's unfortunately, it's very. I don't know. It was never a mainstream show here. It used to be on at like 10 and 11 at night. People listening to this will be like, I don't think we've had that over here. Yeah, we have all 5 seasons. And in fact, it's all on Amazon Prime, I think. She's absolutely brilliant in that, and she was in the last Star Wars, the most recent Star Wars movie as well.
Was she? I blocked that movie completely out of my mind.
Yeah, well, you would have only recognised the voice. She wears a helmet for pretty much 90% of the time that she's on screen.
Wow. For my money, Star Wars ends with Episode 8, but that's a whole other topic. But for my money, Kerry Russell is the only one who could be Snake Plissken in a reboot of Escape from New York. She is that fucking badass.
Oh, that's again a great show.
Kerry Russell to take that role.
Again, that is a really, really great shout, and yes, she would. And the fact that that she's got the same surname as Kurt is just like, yeah, she gets the role. Done. Next.
Right. So yeah, those are my big 3 actresses.
That's awesome. And this is the big one now. Favorite movie of all time.
You know, I was struggling with this, and I was going to go with like a qualified top 10, but I'm going to put my nuts on the line here, and I'm just going to go with one. I could give you my top 10. I can give you a circle of the top 10, but I'm just going to go Apocalypse Now. That is,
wow.
That is a movie that, like, one of those movies like Goodfellas that you can take myriad lessons from. That just explains, like, life and what it's about and how to navigate it. And, you know, not to mention the fact that movie rides the fucking snake, man. That is a trip to the heart of darkness and what is inside the human soul and condition, and it's all there. All the everything is in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, no.
And interestingly, that's a movie that works at 2 hours. That's a movie that works at 3 hours. That's a movie that works at 4 hours. I have the 5-hour bootleg work print of it, and that's not bad either.
Well, I tell you what, true story. I might have told it before. I was on the set of The Matrix Reloaded because one of my best friend's wife, a makeup artist, and she worked with Lawrence for years. And he said they were in Australia when a new print of Apocalypse Now was going to be released. And Lawrence got his US agent to send over to get a copy of the original of this print that was going to come out. It was flown over to Australia, and they hired a cinema for the night, and it was just basically cast and crew from the Matrix movie because they were filming it out in Australia at the time. It was just cast and crew who got to go and see it, and you know it was kind of, you know, invitation only, if you like. And yeah, he said Lawrence just sat there eating popcorn by the handful, like laughing his nuts off at it, and going like, oh man, I don't even remember shooting this scene. And he said it was just an insane experience because he's a kid in there.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's even younger than he's supposed to be in the movie. I mean, what is he, 15, 17, something? Yeah.
I think he was about 16 or 17 when he filmed it.
Yeah, I mean, there you go, a small role, and that's a guy that only kept growing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, man, that was awesome. I mean, that's every question asked. There's clearly. Because I am further down the road, I am going to be looking at doing specials on, you know, particular movies or particular series of movies when it comes to Star Wars and things like that. So don't worry, I've got you flagged up for those down the way as well. And
thank you.
No, thank you. It's great to chat because we haven't spoken for quite a while, so it's lovely to just be able to catch up with you anyway. But I can't thank you enough. This has been awesome.
No, it's been great. You know, I mean, the first time we talked was 2015. You know, if you go back and you listen to that, you were talking about stand-up comedy, and I expressed some interest in it. And I say, well, I can't really do it, but I'll tell you off the air. And what that was kind of the beginning of my self-help journey. Like at that point, I had not quite reached rock bottom with my health, but I was rapidly getting there.
Yeah.
And over the next couple of years, I got into the self-help thing. And I think there's a point with self-help where if you have any kind of brain, you have to realize that you keep hearing the same things over and over again, and you get it, and you either improve or you have to move on. So the Goodfellas book is kind of, it's my final project from my self-help phase. You know, it's about me, you know, the things I learned when I lost 40 pounds, the things I did when I was learning how to write things that I thought I couldn't write, all the lessons that I got from all this self-help stuff are, you know, me watching Goodfellas and identifying those concepts in the book. So, you know, this is very much a full circle moment because at the time I was not healthy. You know, I was borderline diabetic. I didn't realize it. You know, it's good to be back here talking about how I feel a lot better than I did when we first talked.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I've had my fair share of, you know, of those kind of, well, maybe mental health more than physical health issues, and without a doubt, you know, creativity, creating things, working on creative projects is a fantastic way of, you know, improving your physical, mental health, whatever it is, especially if you're able to communicate in it things that, you know, you feel are important and that you need to get out there.
Absolutely. Well, my friend, thank you very much.
Not at all. Thank you.
Your support. As I said, I mean, I don't take it for granted that people out there give a shit about me. You know, thank you. It's shocking to me that my shit continues to sell and that people like you find time to talk to me. So,
well, it's
hopefully these books will give something back to you a little bit.
Well, look, it's my absolute pleasure, and I'm thanking you on my behalf, but I'm also thanking you on the behalf of everybody who's listening because I'm sure they've had a really enjoyable listen to this. So thank you very much, mate. Let's not leave it so long next time.
Peace.
Take care.
Hey, Howard, if you want, real quick, like we could do, I have a couple extra bits you could do for your Patreon people.
And that's pretty much the best kind of Patreon advert I can do. Patreon.com/Howard H. Smith. There's just $5 a month, and boy, do you get a ton of stuff. Now, a little follow-up to that. We are actually going to be recording the Patreon extras separately. But since that chat, DX has watched Dead Man's Shoes. So we're also going to be doing a kind of catch-up on that. And well, a sort of, you know, reaction, as it were. But the email that I received not long after was, so I watched Dead Man's Shoes. Fucking hell, sir. I was not prepared for that. So it's going to be a really interesting, really interesting time on Patreon discussing that. So there's not really much to add, other than I'm not going to do what a lot of podcasts do, which is basically unpick the interview you've just heard and go on and on and on about it. You've just heard it. There's no need for me to mention it again. I hope you enjoyed it. That's it, really, you know. But what I do need you to do is, what I do need to do is thank you for listening. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. If you're sharing the podcast, please do. Movie Bollocks is mixed in the Talking Bollocks timeline, so you know you'll get all sorts of bits and pieces from time to time. There's loads to get at on Patreon, and also I should thank a big up to All About the Rock, who host all the podcasts, and I haven't mentioned recently, and I really should do. So thank you all about the rock, especially Craig, who's having a let's just say having a hard time at the moment, as anybody would in his position, and by that I don't mean the fact that he has to deal with me, but yeah, I mean he's helping get these out whilst going through some pretty horrible stuff in his life. So do bear in mind every time you listen to one of these that there is somebody behind all of this, slaving away on the back end of stuff. who's got a lot more important things and that they could be doing with their life, and they're helping keep all of this going. So big up to Craig and the team at All About the Rock. And that seems to me like a really, really good place to leave it. So I'm going to keep the content coming. All you have to do is listen. And next time, we shall have a little bit of a chat some more. Well, I guess it's not really a chat, is it? Well, it is for me and the guests, not for you. It's a listen. But hopefully, it's still just as enjoyable. Thanks a lot for listening. Speak to you next month.